My name is Dawn Harris-Martine, and I've got something to say. I've been in this community and working in this community all my life. The community raised me, and so I never left. I just took my role into the community and did what other people were doing for me, which is looking out for each other and helping the children. Now, the story begins with my mom. My mom, Anna Mae Hearn Crosby, she came to New York City with my sister, who was like, 2 years older than, no, she's 4 years older than I am, but my mom came to New York City by herself, and she got 3 jobs. She worked as a maid in a hotel, and then she cleaned offices at night, and then on the weekends, the residential hotel people sometimes moved into apartments, and they kept her name, so that on Saturday she cleaned the apartments of the people that moved out of the residential hotel. So my mother was only home with me on Sundays, me and my sister on Sundays. And she would cook for Sunday, and then we would have the food for the rest of the week. But I only saw her on Sundays. And most of the time on Sundays, she would stay in bed until 12 o'clock, and then she would get up and cook all day for the rest of the week. So, and my sister raised me. So my sister had to take me with her wherever she went, which was a drag, and she hated me for that. So that's how it was. And I became an entrepreneur when I was 5 years old, because my mother at some point started giving my sister money to buy the food for us to eat. And my sister took the money and bought Debbie shoes to match her outfits and bought us sandwiches. So I would run errands for the neighbors and get money and buy my food and stand on a chair and cook my food on the stove and eat the food that I wanted to eat. I taught myself to read from my sister's books, and because she left me at the library. So I read all the books in the library. My mother couldn't afford to send me to college, but she sent me to drafting school to learn how to do drafting, because I really was an artist, but my mother said people don't make money drawing pictures. So the only thing that she could equate with what I was doing was drafting, so she sent me to drafting school. So I became an architectural draftswoman, and I worked for a man, and my job was to file the plans in the building department and see the plan examiners. And so I got so good at that, I decided, who needs this boss? I'll go out on my own and be my own person, the building department person for different architects, and that's what I did. And then in 1970, when open enrollment came, they said, if you have a high school diploma, you can go to college. I ran through. I didn't wait until September. I went in January, February, the beginning year. And so I was so serious about it. At the time, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. And my mom would watch the children for me while I went to school. So I went to school and Manhattan Community College, and I had a 4.0 average, and I was the valedictorian of that year. And I won a scholarship, and I could pick any four-year college that I could attend, and I chose Sarah Lawrence because a girl flippantly said to me, oh, why don't you go to Sarah Lawrence? I'd never heard of Sarah Lawrence. And I looked it up, and it was a school in Bronxville that I could get on the train here and go, and it was small school, because the school that I went to had a lot of people. So I went to Sarah Lawrence, and that's where I met Grace Paley. Grace Paley was my Dawn, and and from then when I came out, it took me like 12 years to go to grad school because I couldn't afford it. And then when I got enough money to go to grad school, I went to Columbia Teachers College and got my master's. Now, I became a teacher by accident because my principal was a tenant in the same house that I lived in, and she was looking for teachers. She's a Harlem principal and had no teachers, and I didn't teach. I was just a parent that had 2 smart kids, and they knew my kids were smart, so they figured that I must have been smart. But but it worked out. You know, I wasn't smart then anyway, but she hired me, and I did the same, and she gave me a class with only 16 kids in it. And so with those 16 kids, I pretended that all of those children were my children. So I did the same things with those kids in the class that I did with my kids at home, which was read to them, find out what their strengths and interests were, and I taught them the other things that they needed to know through the things that they wanted to know and they were strong in. So I made them, I said, you're going to become an expert in something. So everybody in my class became an expert in something. And if they didn't know what it was, we helped them find out what they were experts. So some were experts in writing, some were experts in math, and some were experts in reading. My professor at Columbia was a woman named Dorothy Strickland. And Dorothy Strickland, she would give us these ideas about how to run a classroom, she always came to my classroom Monday morning to see what I was doing, because I would always adapt whatever she said, and would never the same way she told me, because I had black children and Hispanic children, and she was telling us these other things to do with them, and some of it didn't fly. So she came to see what I was doing in the classroom, and then brought a camera crew and made a film called The Reading Writing Connection. I observed that the education that my children were getting at Hunter Elementary School was different from the education that the black children were getting at the Mahalia Jackson School. Meaning, there was much more involved, and the kids were taken into consideration, you know, that the kids in the school, these teachers were just making a living. You know, some of the teachers would just sit with their heads at the desk, and the children would just sit there and do nothing in the classroom. And these children, my children, were going to play zoos and aquariums and places around the city and whatnot. So I decided at the Mahalia Jackson School that I would do the same thing that my children at Hunter Elementary were doing, which was using the city as a resource. Like every Tuesday, a bus would pull up in front of the Mahalia Jackson School, and I would pile all of the kids on the bus. And then when the parents found out what a good time the kids were having, the parents started to come, and they started seeing all the things in the city that they could see. Okay? And so it was a different thing entirely. And so then the principal of the schools gave me the smarter class that year. I had a middle of the road class who were doing better than some of the smarter kids. And that was only because they were engaged, they were reading more, they were doing more things, that they were actually involved in what they were doing because they had a part in it. So as I learned, the kids learned, and you know, and I realized that the children needed to be able to earn a living and do things other than what people expected them to do, which was be consumers and workers. I wanted them to be entrepreneurs and homeowners and landowners. Okay? So the fact that I saw that I could do it, there was nothing, I wasn't special, but so I figured that other kids could do that. So my motto with the children was dream big, work hard, stay focused, and you will achieve your goals. In 1999, they fixed this building. They fixed this building up, and there was a store here. And I realized that if I didn't put something in this store, that it was going to be some kind of horrible thing that I didn't want right next to my building, right? So I thought about a literacy center, because I was a teacher at the time, and most of the parents some of them didn't know how to read. So I opened a literacy center with all these volume books that I had, and it was good, but they raised the rent. So in order to keep this thing going, I started selling the books that I had in the store. And the books didn't sell, and I added some toys and games with it, and the combination of the toys and games and books, that began to sell. And so with the rent from the property from the brownstone next door, I subsidize the store. So that's how the store and the intertwined. The store helps me out and I help the store out. As the community has changed, the store has changed. It's what the neighborhood needs. Like right now, more people, more parents are homeschooling their children because the public school is failing them. So we have now curriculum guides, we have books for parents to work with their own children so that they can do it at home. So, and lots of other ways we've changed. I always have books about famous people and people and positive things. I don't have any negative books in here, but positive books on people, places, and things, and the interests of the children. My mother told me not to shine, right? But my mother, I understood what my mother meant about me not shining because my mother came up during slavery time, like, and then if you shined, you know, you got ripped off and raped and taken away, right? So that's what she was talking about. But it stopped me all of my life from when people would recognize me for doing something special. Of course, every kid wants to do well, but when I did well, I felt strange because people, any attention that was shown to me, I got real upset, and it was because my mother told me not to shine. But I'm hoping that where she is now, she's seeing that the shining has been a good thing.